Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Winter. We are moving into our 4th series of the day, the winner's match. 2 exciting players going to be facing off against each other. My name is Feardring, and I am joined by In Control, who is in a good old jolly mood moving into this series.
I've had my energy drink. I'm hyped.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah, I always do. And I'm also excited about Elazer Harstem. You know, I've been saying it in each of these broadcasts, but it still remains true. Year of Harstem, we make our jokes, but Harstem has gone to win home story cups. He's done well overseas in Asia. He is one of those guys that has that kind of like ability to throttle and get way up there. He could beat an Elazer. I do actually believe that. But also, Elazer is the kind of guy who could just be so good that he's pressing Serral for, you know, top spot, basically.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things we're going to have to look at in this series is whether or not Elazer has the War Chest spawning pool skin on, because this is an important thing. It gives you that confidence boost you need to win your series, and that intimidation factor Harstem might not be prepared for.
He might not. Ravi, I want to kind of take us away from the talk about the spawning pool, which you guys all got to buy. Okay, that War Chest is fantastic. I'm looking at this observer list. I'm seeing a lot of fantastic casters in there. I think that's really cool. There's a lot of different languages broadcasting WCS. It's very international. I love that. I see Indy, the guy that won Todd's Clash Caster Invitational. He won the whole thing, gets a couple $1,000 for himself, and is here commentating. I think that's amazing. I'm asking you this, Ravi.
Where's Jim Rising?
Where is Jim Rising? Why is he not commentating this?
Well, you see, Jeff, he's preparing for the Americas broadcast.
What's he doing during the Americas broadcast?
He's playing in the Americas
Well, hang on
broadcast.
now. He qualified for WCS winner? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, he might be in one of those later groups, Jeff. That might, in fact, be the case.
Gosh, that's so... The fact that he can do that while still being a commentator.
It's really a compelling
How come Indy,
story.
who won the tournament, didn't qualify for WCS winner?
Look, I'm not saying that Jim Rising is just more talented inherently.
Okay.
So let's move into this next series. It's going to be, like we said, a Protoss versus Zerg. These guys have faced off against each other a decent number of times, and Elazer usually has come out on top of the past X number of months. I want to say like the past year or so.
Okay.
He usually ends up winning this. I think he's like a 77% win rate versus Harstem across their career, but Harstem has been looking better. Harstem is that kind of up and down player a lot of the time, and lately he has been looking really strong. We'll see if he can make it work against this guy up here at the top right-hand corner of New Repugnancy. It is the blue Zerg player, Elazer. Team a go.
It is a Go Esports, it says right there.
And starting down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player, also a commentator sometimes. He is Harstem. Team Asterion.
Almost $100,000 to his name, not too shabby. Well done. Did you know that Elazer is the best chess player amongst the professional StarCraft 2 guys?
Really?
Yeah.
Just by ELO, I'm guessing?
He actually has a very high ELO. I want to say it's like last I saw it was around 15 or 20. What was it? Anyways, it's very high. And anything I say, no, my uncle's 3,300. All right, fine. He's very good at chess, I promise you.
Yeah, don't worry. The ELO would have been totally lost on me anyways, because I play on a application that nobody else uses, and I only play chess against my mom. So my rating is just constantly going up.
Do you beat your mom in chess?
I defeat my mom in chess.
It's good, because that would have been a terrible clip had you said that differently.
Yeah, I've wisened up to your baits. Not always. Like 10% of the time more, though, I'm catching on.
Yeah, you still didn't look up prolapse, I think it was.
No, there are about 8 words I didn't look up after you told me them.
Well, I'm trying to educate the masses. Now, we do have that low ground wall in here, so walling in a bit of an art form. We were talking about this at day 1, actually. Another content producer out in the StarCraft 2 scene that we really enjoy. Nice _ username. Made a... actually, it was either him or Gemini.
Gemini. It was Gemini.
It was Gemini that made a... what would you call it? An Imgur? Imgur? What do you call that?
Imager.
Imager?
Yeah,
it's IMGUR.
Well, is it GIF or GIF?
Don't do that to me. Anyways, look up this guy. He made a file of images that show kind of the best wall-ins on all these maps. And normally that's not the biggest of deals, but these new maps actually have a little bit of tricky wall-ins. And yesterday we saw what can happen if you perhaps don't wall-in super well and your name's Peely Peely.
Yeah, what's kind of funny is that usually when you're up against something like that, you are going to be up against speed Zerglings or something like that, and you kind of need Zergling speed for that to be the case. In fact, Elazer completely skipping it right now. Okay, now he's going to go for
Skipping into it.
Yeah, I guess it just was going for a faster third base, but I think the third base came down before he started Zergling speed, so delaying it.
Robbie, would you say he's committing to Zergling speed here?
I don't even... Now I'm overly reacting to your baits.
There's
this
the
is
game
like a feint? Is
in
this
the
like
game?
a feint bait?
Right. So in a boxing match, which I think you train in boxing a little bit,
yeah,
everything can't be a haymaker. Sometimes you got to throw a little body jab every once in a while. And you have body motion to kind of fake punches that also contribute to the exhaustion of your opponent. So right now, you just got a little feint.
Jeff confirmed trying to beat me on the broadcast.
Well, everyone's trying to win.
That's true. I think you would probably beat me in chess.
I don't know. It's tough to say. You're a very smart guy, and I have a lot of confidence in your talent.
Oh, thank you.
Roach Warren going down here at a decent time, but that is still the lair. And the kind of funny thing about this is that if you do face like a big adept attack, one of the only things that really shuts it down is Roach speed. Of course, there are other things, I guess, but to my point, the ability to counterattack after that is huge. Also, charge lots or Archon drops, all those things fairly well answered by having Roach speed. So I think that's kind of what he's making a blitz towards, as Harstem is going to show up with this kind of forward aggression.
Not used to seeing the 6-Stalker Warp Prism attack, and he's going to be making his way out with a couple more Stalkers through the center of the map, clearing the pathway. Going to find one of the Overlords over here, and this looks like it is going to temporarily supply block Elazer. Not for too long. He has 2 more Overlords on the way, but with Roaches coming out, that supply block is going to hurt.
Jeez, he's actually even pulling the drones here right off the bat as well. Good target fire coming out of Harstem as he's going to hit this kind of weird timing where individual Roaches, again without speed, are going down fairly quick.
And the Zealots add in a lot of extra DPS versus the drone pull, really negating the effectiveness of this. Stalkers, the Blink upgrade may have been buffed in the sense that you don't need as many resources, but you don't even need it in this case. Warp Prism works just as well.
Absolutely. He's going to push forward here. He's going to get another Queen on the retreat. And with Zealots up there in the front to buffer, these slow Roaches are going to have a little bit of a tough time. More drones getting pulled again. And Harstem with the great Stalker micro so far hasn't lost a whole lot. Now using the Warp Prism to increase that micro. And with only just the 2 Queens, the Warp Prism's not in that much danger either, whereas when it was like 4 or 5 Queens, that could have got shot down real quick. Yeah, and Harstem still even just respecting those Queens, pulling back the Warp Prism a little bit. Has barely taken any damage past the shields, and eventually those Queens are going to run out of that frontline buffer and start to get picked off. So that Warp Prism looking pretty safe for the most part. Yep, for right now it is, well, it's at about a third of its health, so it's just a couple of volleys away from dying, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. There's no Queens. And none on the by themselves. Supply tells me that Harstem's going to have this first game. Really, really well executed over there for Harstem. Was sitting on 36 workers or 35 workers when he went for this big push out, and Elazer try to stick around, I think, about 44 workers, but it just does not work out. GG. GG, and Harstem executes a interesting little timing attack. And I do have to say, one of my favorite things about watching Harstem play is that, yes, he's got good micro. He is just a fun player in general because he's very upbeat. And, of course, when he gives the interview, he's going to give you a super honest answer, and it's just a fun guy in that way. But what I've known about him, learning over the years, seeing him compete in Homestrike Cup and WCS and stuff like that, is that he's actually a pretty darn good architect of ideas in a series. He studies his opponents very well, but he also comes up with like his own builds and his own timing attacks. He's not the kind of player that the night before the GSL or the week before the Super Meta is going to be what Harstem does. And I think a good example of this is actually for a while there when Archon Drop was super popular, he was going for a faster third Nexus and then charge lots off of that while everyone else is going Archon Drop. And it's not because, again, he thought he was the best player in the world, had the better idea. It was more because he recognized his execution of the Archon Drop wasn't top tier, And if everyone's practicing against that, then why do something that you're not as good at? So we kind of broke away from it. Anyways, that's a long discussion on Harstem, but it's part of the reason why I really enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, he's a very fun player. Always has that own little unique twist to his playstyle, which is a lot of fun, kind of refreshing. And of course, that does make it harder for players like Elazer to actually be able to study up on him. Because again, this is WCS Winter. This is effectively one of the really big first events of the year. So Harstem probably keeping builds like that close to his chest, making sure he doesn't reveal that to Elazer on the ladder and stuff, so that he can bust it out over here, catch him by surprise, and now sitting up 1-0, he's one game away from moving on to the next group stage.
And he would move on as that #1 seed. And it would be a big win for him too, because Elazer's obviously looking very good. It is just the one game advantage right now, but Elazer's got to win 2 games in a row against a player that, like I said, is definitely capable of busting out, and as Ravi said, excuse me, and it's a very good point, something that he's been practicing as a bit of a strategy that maybe you're not prepared for at all, and it's supposed to win in the short term. You would think that makes him cheesy, but the thing I like about Harstem is that that's not his one dimension. He doesn't go in every game and be like, on this map, I have this other timing attack that's an all-in. He is willing to do the macro game as well, and that's part of what makes him so dynamic.
Well, we're moving back onto Automaton, which is the first map in the last series Harstem played, where he got Ling all in, but Harstem had an extremely solid hold. We'll see where Elazer takes things in game number 2 when he is sitting down 0-1. As we are going to be starting up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top of that blue Zerg player from Team Ago, he is Elazer. And down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, it is the red Protoss player sitting up 1-0. He is Harstem from Team Mysterion.
One of the more jovial and friendly personalities in the StarCraft 2 scene. Harstem always a constant at Home Story Cup. Another great tournament you guys can look forward to hopefully later this year.
Yeah, he did quite well in one of the home. He won one of the Home Story Cups.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Wins it. Always a big fan favorite on the couch. But the cool thing about Harstem is he's not just a guy that at an off tournament like that shows good performances. He's always a constant big name in the WCS. But I think what makes him kind of fun to root on is he's not your like top 4, top 6, constant, just absolute best player, but everyone recognizes him as one of the best European players. It's just that at these tournaments, you don't have to just be one good player or even 2. It's like you have to beat 5 or 6 very, very good players to get anywhere near the top of these tournaments. These WCS tournaments are so competitive, so it's not unreasonable that along the way you start losing some of those series. And I think that's a big part of the reason too why some of the best players in Europe, like Petit Drogo, TLO, these are some of the guys that we all know are very, very good, but we haven't seen in the semifinals or finals of a WCS in a very long time.
Absolutely, and I think even sometimes the matchups, you can have that one bad matchup and you get a good player of that. I mean, we've seen Stefano fall prey to that quite a few times, unfortunately. ZvZ, yep. I want to know how this game is going to go, because Automaton is that sort of weird map where whenever I look at it as a Protoss player, I always say, oh man, this wall is so far away, your third base can sometimes feel a little bit weird to take, but every single time I see pro players play on it, I feel like it either goes really long or really short, and there's very rarely the in-between.
I guess it could go that way. For me personally, I don't mind the third. It's just below your natural, and there's actually kind of I wouldn't call it a small ramp, but there is a ramp leading into it.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the most attackable expansion. And then your fourth base is often going to be that one to the right of your main if you're red, or left if you're blue up there. And that one is obviously a little bit more exposed, but again, it kind of puts the other expansions behind you, so it becomes like a 2 or 3 area defense. And those areas still have ramps and chokes.
Well, we are going to see a complete lack of warp gate, because you know what? I'm sure Rotterdam is out there somewhere watching this series and saying, all right, my Dutch boy, Harstem, he knows how to play StarCraft. A lot of area units going to be coming.
They are. Now, I want to keep our eye on that main base, because there's 2 out of 3 probes on each of the gases for Harstem. And I know that that's so he can have full saturation of minerals, but if this continues, it's a little bit weird, because if you're going to go +1 air attack like that, you take the earlier gases at your natural, which again he has 2 out of 3 there, right? Am I seeing
So
that
it
correctly?
must be intentional if he's doing it as natural as well, right?
It's intentional, but it's still weird. because you'll notice he doesn't have a whole lot of gas.
He's also not, he doesn't actually have a second Stargate, which I think usually you have thrown down around now, right?
This is kind of what I was talking about. Harstem is an absolute architect, so something about this build is refined down to even these little points. Like some players, like if you see me with 2 out of 3 gases, you don't think for a second, be like, wow, Jeff's really cooking with fire here. What is he doing? It's a huge mistake. Harstem, this is not a mistake at all. So the +1 air attack is something interesting here. The emphasis on minerals, despite opening up what would seem to be a gas-heavy opening, it's all intentional.
Well, Elazer knows that there is a Stargate opening, and I think in the next minute or so, he's going to look and scout that front door and say, you still don't have Warp Gate done? That's a little weird. That's a little suspicious. The second Stargate is on the way, by the way, and he did finally fully saturate those gases. But like you said, it's going to be definitely on the later side, so he doesn't have as much gas to work with. Added on another gateway, though, so maybe he's going to try and complement this with more Zealots or something on the ground. But without a Twilight Council or charge, that will be a little weird to do.
Yeah. Well, I've got my bifocals on, and I'm being very skeptical because I want to see when he proposes to hit with these Phoenix, because +1 air attack has finished for a little while now, and it's not doing anything for him obviously right this second. It doesn't have to the second it finishes, so he is going to move out at 5 Phoenix. So if you did start Warp Gate and then went air attack, you would not have the upgrade by this time. So it's worth mentioning that was all about this moment right here.
Lair Tech is on the way. Elazer going to be throwing down some extra Spore Crawlers. Actually, are those... Okay, yeah, he does already have 3 Spore Crawlers finished up, 1 at each one of these bases, but throwing up the second ones, recognizing this is going to be double Stargate. He's going to be bleeding out a few drones here and there, but you want to try and focus fire down one particular Phoenix, try and get the kill off there, and just keep that Phoenix count low.
Well, Ravi, it should not be just a few drones. If it's just a few drones off of this kind of dedication, then Elazer's in fantastic shape. The name of the game for Harstem right now is to kill as many drones as possible, maybe a queen or 2, and then, of course, all of the overlords. He's taking a third behind this, which I would think to be one of the harder things to see happen in this with this build. Had there been like 20 speedlings out there, which is not the most, I mean, if you face a Starbuck, that there will be, this third never happens, or at least it happens more expensively. But as it is, without Warp Gate, he's going to get that third, and he is also getting this harass down. So this is very good for our Protoss player so far.
Fleet Beacon also on the way, as, I mean, he invests in the +1 weapons. He wants to do more than just kill overlords with the +1 weapons. It's not like actually having +1 weapons helps out versus drones. So he wants to get some value from that. Going into a fast Fleet Beacon makes sense. Loses one of the Phoenix there, loses a second Phoenix thanks to some really good target fire there from Elazer. Transfuses also keeping the Queen alive. Not working out quite as well in that run-in.
No, I believe he ended up losing 2, maybe 3 Phoenix.
4 Phoenix total this game. I think it was 2 or 3 during that run by.
So that's okay, generally speaking. You can lose Phoenix, right? Because this is, you need to keep the flock up. As long as you're killing drones, it is a good trade. You look no further than Rotterdam Stream, where he'll lose tons of Phoenix. But as long as the count is still growing and you are killing the drones, you're winning out in that exchange at the end of the day. And this is an early Fleet Beacon into Carrier, which is also quite nice, because one of the first things that happens, too, for our Zerg player, and you can see this happening, additional Spore Crawlers, additional Queens, more drones to replace the ones that are lost. These are all things that don't help you against the Carrier. But what is a concern is there are already Hydras coming out, and if you're not jumping out on the early Hydras, Zergs these days, by the way, when they make these Queens, they throw down a Nidus. I don't know that it'll do that, but it's an option.
Elazer loves to get in his opponent's face, so I wouldn't hate that idea from Elazer, but Spire also on the way here. Elazer, I think, maybe thinking about getting up some Corruptors or something. Overseer's going to get picked off over there. Hive Tech also on the way there for Elazer.
Yeah, and that's what has me thinking it's not Nidus. Usually with Nidus timing attacks, you're spending all your money on making that attack itself very powerful. The Spire, the Hive, I would be thinking it's going to be Greater Spire, but maybe by the time he sees that it's dedicated Stargate play like Carrier, I don't know about Greater Spire. Maybe something like Vipers.
Yeah, get some Parasitic Bombs down on those Phoenix and also trying to help pull those Carriers into your Hydras, that kind of stuff. But I will say, one of the units that really scale quite well with those air weapon upgrades are the Carriers. And because he got such a fast start on +1 weapons, there was, of course, a little bit of a delay while he got up his Fleet Beacon before he started up +2. But his +2 is going to be done around the time that a decent number of carriers are out. I think number 3 and number 4 will be out, maybe, or at least close to it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. Air Protoss is something that's a little bit of, I wouldn't call it foreign territory for me, but I'm not an expert is what I would say. But I did, and I'm going to keep borrowing this wealth of knowledge forever, because I think anytime you mention Rotterdam, you're doing something right. But he talks a lot about how carriers, in particular, at +2 air attack upgrade, becomes something completely different. Interceptors hitting twice and all that. So it's a very important upgrade. Conversely, though, I do want to say it is 8 Corruptors coming out, and it is a Greater Spire. So I don't want to call it necessarily a misplay, because Broodlords don't ever feel like a misplay. But if it is 0 ground units and it's just carriers, I don't know what the Broodlords are super doing for you that mass Hydras and Vipers wouldn't do better.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Maybe he just wants the opportunity to morph in Broodlords if he finds this chance to actually utilize them to break some of the cannon defenses or something, but I would like it if he uses the Greater Spire just as an opportunity that he could move into that, but not actually making any Broodlords right now.
And here come the carriers, and Elazer's going to respect that, but what's kind of funny about that is I felt like he actually could have just killed all those Interceptors.
It's a hard judgment call, right?
It is. I'm just not a big fan of carriers right now. I see so many fights where, and here's why though, Ravi, and it's very specifically how you use the carriers. If the carriers deploy their Interceptors over the Hydras and you have something to occupy or diversify what the Hydras are shooting at, I feel like the carriers win that fight in a big way. They snowball very quick. But when you deploy the Interceptors deep like that, and then they're chasing Hydras or falling back into a bigger Hydra cloud, I feel like that's where the Interceptors die pretty inexpensively and freely. But like you said, it's a judgment call, and right now, Elazer's making the easier, or the safer one. Excuse me.
Now, I know in some of the previous days of WCS Winter, you and Nate were talking about how many carriers is that tipping point again, and I feel like we're getting pretty close to that tipping point again, where we're already up to, what is that, 8 carriers now?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. What are those? Okay, so here we go. The Corruptor's going to jump on top of one of the carriers. He's got enough that it's like 2 or 3 volleys here killing a carrier. Shield Bearers don't seem to be doing that much. And the Corruptors, without having Void Rays here, are going to get most of these carriers, if not all of them.
And that is a complete reset for Harstem. Even if he doesn't get every single carrier here, which I think actually at this point he is going to be able to, that's not something that Harstem can actually remake right now. This took the entire game to get up to. GG.
GG, nicely done by Elazer there. And I do have to say, this is going to be a little bit far sweeping, but maybe chat and threads can talk about this because I find it kind of interesting. Again, during the GSL last night, which thankfully we were in the midst of GSL. Congrats to Artosis and Tastosis and all of us as fans. It was really wonderful. We saw again that timing attack coming out from Keen. We've been talking about this the last couple days at WCS when we have some Terran players. Actually, there's like none today. Oh no, there's one.
There's some in Americas, yeah.
Some in Americas. Anyways, it's this really common meta timing attack, and I really do feel like it's going to absolutely go the way of the dodo, and we won't see it. The other one that I think is the popularity of carriers. In a lot of these games, I know that situationally they can be very powerful. Ravi, you were talking about the tipping point that we've discussed. Certainly there is some, but it's not even just carriers by themselves. It's like they need Storm, they need Archons, they need Void Rays, they need maybe a Mothership. Some people skip the Mothership, fine. They need Oracles. That army is very good. The ramp up to that, it used to be that carriers were so powerful that if that army shows up, the 8 carriers and shield bearers can still hold it off. That day's come and gone. So when you go carrier, I feel like what you're doing right now is saying, I'm vulnerable for like 10 minutes. If you attack me in 10 minutes, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's a big period of vulnerability, and we saw Elazer able to successfully exploit that. We're going to move into Game 3 in just a little bit, but first, guys, we're going to go to a short break. Use this as an opportunity to go pick up that war chest if you haven't already. And if you have, then enjoy your experience button that's somewhere over there or somewhere over there. We'll see you guys in a little bit with Game 3. Did you miss us, ladies and gentlemen? We are back and already stumbling over our words.
Well, you are.
Yeah. Well, you know, we have to share the blame, right? 50-50?
Fair enough. I'll go down to the
It's
ship.
part of the contract.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We're moving into game number 3 of this exciting series, and the winner's match for Group C. Game is already loaded on up. Let's not waste any time to get these players ready to see who's going to make it out of the group first, who is going to have a chance to make it out in second.
Both players very good. A lot of people would like to see either one of them go on.
Well, if you're hoping to see either one of them go on, you're going to get your wish, Jeff.
Yeah.
Starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player from Team Ago. He is Elazer. And up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, from Team Asterion, the red Protoss player, he is Harstem.
And already, we have that wall-in beginning for our Protoss player. Hatch first coming out for Elazer. All pretty normal stuff. Talking a little bit about this map, it does get shrunk down a little bit in the mid-game. Your expansions start to get kind of closer to your opponent, no matter what you do. But again, the nice thing about this map pool, and part of the reason why we're seeing more Protoss success, is just about all the maps have a decently defensible third. It's none of the maps have this like really crazy third that you cannot get to. But also, I would say Protoss players have developed a strong handling of the meta and their own tools. Like, it used to be any time the natural had a low ground and then you had to go back up into a high ground to get to a third, the Protoss just died. Like, we did not understand how to make those kind of maps work for a while. Just our win percentage dipped. But as you can see here, going out of the natural into the third, you have that low ground, and it's still fine.
Protoss players learning. Don't even need Alpha Star to help him out on figuring out those walls.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. I think it'll be really interesting if Alpha Star does. I'm waiting to see if Alpha Star does any kind of interesting stuff with building placements or walls.
Okay.
Just to see if there's anything to learn there.
Well, as a cannon rusher, I could see why you'd be interested in that, I suppose.
That is also true. But I mean, we already have effectively a robot of printf doing that, so.
Yikes. You just call him a robot?
He operates through spreadsheets. He writes down and formulates all of his empirical data in a spreadsheet, reflects on it, and then algorithmically determines what build to do next game.
Okay.
True story.
Still would not call that man a robot. Just a diligent note taker.
Isn't that what a robot is?
No. I feel like you'll chase this dream right down to the very end. It's
Yeah.
gonna go on for 10 minutes. And
we'll
at the end of it, there'll be people like, Jeff, stop bullying him. Just let it be a robot. Come on.
That'll be my favorite part. That's how I win, Jeff, actually. I never win the
Have
arguments.
you gotten any tweets yet, by the way? It's been 3 days, and I feel like no one's come to your aid against me and Nate.
I don't know, because I've probably blocked all of those people by now. So
Maybe they are, just shouting out into the void.
Yeah, actually, I mute them so they don't know that they're blocked. I'm like, you know what? I don't want you to make a new Twitter account for this.
Yeah, exactly.
We got 5 gateways, by the way, and the warp prism.
Yep,
for
same time
Harstem.
attack. I think it's the same one.
Did he have 5 or 4 warp gates or gateways in that last attack?
You know what? My attention to detail does not get that severe.
Okay. Well, either way, it is still going to be looking to be similar at a minimum since he's got that warp prism being chrono boosted out. He doesn't have a Twilight Council. Is really going to only have the opportunity to make most of those units from the gateways, and is not really going to have too much time to make an immortal. So it's going to look pretty similar, it seems like, to Elazer. We'll see if Elazer can come up with an answer this time, and he is non-stop making lings and got a roach run on the way on just 35 workers. So either he was looking to get aggressive or he has read this like a book.
And hopefully that's the answer, because what's so crazy about this from Harstem is this is not something we're seeing other Protoss players do. Like, the concept of a fast warp prism and warping in units, that's been done, I guess. But Harstem's got this down to a bit of a science here. So some Lings are going to find units at the front of the natural. The Protoss, I have to imagine right now, to your point, if he didn't know what he's facing, he does right now. The hard thing, though, is like with those Lings coming out, it becomes a little bit of a question of larva, strangely enough. So he's only got, well, he's got the 10. I mean, he's got a decent stuff here, right? He's got a good number of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like he's really started making it at the absolute perfect time to handle this. It's interesting that he goes to the counterattack with the Lings. There is a full wall off over there, so he's going to take some time to break through that.
Yeah.
And that means that there's not actual units to try and nip this in the bud.
Yeah, he's got a decent number of roaches here. He's favoring the roaches over the queens like last time. And as you said, with that full wall, it's just a couple of units should shut this down almost entirely. So those are big buildings too. Those are not pylons that are getting surrounded.
He can re-wall off behind the center more quickly, but he's not actually.
Third base.
He is engaging over here. Transfuse is also coming down, but that gateway almost went down. And instead, we end up seeing all the Lings pulling on back. The roaches clean up all the zealots, and there's not that many reinforcements behind this. The Lings come back to shut this down.
Yep.
And Elazer keeps the third base alive.
And behind this, he's not mining the gas. He's only just now making probes. There is no tech other than the robo. I have to say Elazer has solved this in this case. And you had asked, did he know this was coming? I think he at least predicted. He cut drones pretty severely. I think you said 35 drones. He didn't have as many queens. He favored the speedlings. And he had a good 10 roaches by the time the meat of this attack showed up. And it was just a very good defense for Elazer.
Yeah, still 5 queens out on the map as well. He's trying to focus fire down the hatchery now. Remember, the Stalkers do extra damage versus armored units and also buildings, and he is going to be able to get so close to getting it. Oh my god, those transfuses coming in the last second, and by the time Harstem has a chance to move back in, he's actually going to already have more transfuses available.
Yep. Not today.
That is
Elazer.
tough.
This is game 3. So the only follow-up to this too, and this is the silly thing, you basically have to do an Immortal all-in. It's usually a lot of sentries, but he hasn't been mining gas, so it's not even that many sentries. And then it's like 2, maybe 3 Immortals.
Yeah, it's 1 sentry, and the second Immortal is about to pop, but is going to have to walk its way across the map because the Warp Prism's here. Not ideal.
Nope.
And this is not going to supply block a Elazer, losing that Overlord. He's got plenty to work with. He's got more Lings on the way, and he knows all he has to do is defend this push, and the game is his.
Love the macro hatch by Elazer, by the way. Taking a 4th seems a little bit dangerous given what he's facing. But the macro hatch is going to tip this over because Lings are fantastic here. I know Zealots are good against Lings, but without force fields, without huge amounts of things behind said Zealots, going for the surround, getting on top of Stalkers, peeling off the shield of the Immortal, this is the job of the Lings, and then let the Roaches, the Queens, and the Ravagers rain death down on them.
Well, Harstem was able to warp in some more sentries, but don't be fooled. These are freshly warped in sentries. They barely have any energy after using 3 force fields already. That was nearly half the force fields available. Has to back up. He's being very cautious with this army because he knows this is kind of his last shot in this game to try and make this work.
Yep, he's just looking to get some winning army positioning, maybe siphon off a couple of queens cheaply, maybe with a force field or 2. And he has a decent number of zealots, but he's adding gateways behind this. It's just for me, with the bigger and better economy of Elazer, more queens are coming, more ravagers, and these are the things that, if your army is just not packing that much range firepower, I mean, all the corrosive biles just annihilate the sentries and kill the Immortals. It's tough to see a win here.
Well, a full pylon wall off over on the other side of the map is going to prevent a run by for a little bit, but those pylons can get knocked down if there's only 1 Stalker
Big fight.
trying to work away at them. Corrosive biles coming down on top of the force fields. Harstem doing a decent job trying to dodge out of those, but eventually they all start to expire. A couple more desperation ones go up, but it seems like Elazer is starting to close the distance. The Immortal's doing some damage, more Stalkers getting warped in, but this is already a mostly dead army here for Harstem. He was unable to break Elazer, and it looks like he's going to start getting pushed further and further back.
Yep, this should be GG here just about now. This guy, yep, that's exactly right. GG's called out, and Elazer will advance in first place from this group, and I think that is the most normal prediction for the group. Cool seeing the 2 sides of this coin, right? So the first time that we see Harstem do this timing attack and Elazer wasn't ready for it, blew him away. It was very one-sided. It was really cool to see. Harstem goes back into that bag of tricks with this build that he's crafted down to the where probes are mining and at what time. But Elazer had an idea of how to hold it off, and it was the other way. It did not look very good at all.
Absolutely. Whether it be a good read or just scouting some really small hints or something like that, Elazer is able to use that game to claw his way to victory and advance on out of the group, the first player to advance on out. If you're a Harstem fan, don't fret or frown, because of course he is just going to be moving down to that decider match, this 5th series of today for the European group. I was doing so well for a little bit.
I was like wondering if you're doing like a V for Vendetta alliteration thing over there or something like that.
Wait, was I doing alliterations?
Don't fret, frown. He's goes 5th match, and I was like, what is happening over there?
I didn't even notice that one.
Okay.
Sometimes I amaze even you, Jeff.
Every time, actually.
Every time.
Every time, buddy.
We'll take a look at the schedule. Our next match, we're going to be going to the match that we already have set up, in fact. That decider match, Starbuck versus Harstem, Protoss versus Zerg. We'll see how this one rolls out in just a little bit.